What is up, everyone? Brandon Ferst, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are First. Welcome in to week 17 of the NFL Weekly here on the network. We break down everything the NFL has to offer through a betting perspective. And of course, with me, as always, is my friend and co-host, Raider Jim Martinez. You can find Mr. Martinez at Raider Jim 1090. How you doing tonight, sir?
Hey, I'm doing good. I have everything wrapped. I don't have it under the tree yet, and but that's okay. That's way ahead of the game for me. And a little bit of rain outside, but nothing too bad. I've got cookies from the neighbor, and I've got food in my refrigerator, so I'm happy.
There you are. It is that time of year. We are recording a little earlier than normal. Tuesday, the 23rd. Obviously, both myself and Raider Jim not going to be available the next 2 days, so figured we'd get out ahead of it and give you some picks. With that being said, we are going to omit the Thursday games, which is pretty normal. I don't want to subject the editor on the back end of this of, your Christmas Eve and your Christmas are pretty much vanquished so that we can talk about what Bo Nix, Max Brosmer, and I don't even know the gentleman's name who is now starting for Kansas City. But yeah, it'll be a nice little day if the wife has kind of gotten on you, or the significant other has gotten on you the last few years. Oh, you're not paying enough attention. During Christmas, you only watch football. This could be a year where you say, you know what, honey, I am not going to watch football. Going to be a pretty boring Thursday, I would assume. With that being said, I don't have a significant other, so I will be watching all of that. But week 17 used to be the finish line. Now it is the second to last lap of the year, if you will. We're going to take a look here at the playoff picture. It's interesting because there is some drama, but it's maybe not the drama we expected. Only one division has been wrapped up, and of course it is the NFC East. Ironically, a division that has never been won back-to-back in the last 20 years, so the Eagles have ended that streak. So only one division up for grabs. However, there are pretty much, so we have 12 playoff spots already determined. 10 playoff spots already determined. 4 are up for grabs. Not a whole lot of drama. We're all looking at Indianapolis this weekend. If Indy can beat Jacksonville, then we will have a very juicy Indy-Houston game next week. There's a very real chance that we head into next weekend with all but one playoff spot already decided. But let's just run through it real quick. On the AFC side of things, the Denver Broncos currently are the 1 seed. No divisions have been locked up and no seeds have been locked up. So that's where a lot of the drama is going to come from. It's going to kind of be that musical chairs. We know who's going to be in the dance. We just don't know who their dancing partners are at the moment. But Denver is the 1 seed in the AFC at 12-3. The Patriots, the 2 at 12-3 as well. Then we work our way down to the division-leading Jacksonville Jaguars, 11-4. Currently, the 4 seed is your Pittsburgh Steelers. They have not clinched anything. The top 3 seeds have, including the Jaguars. And then the Los Angeles Chargers and Buffalo Bills, both 11-4, both wild cards, currently still can win their respective divisions, but they are already in the dance. On the NFC side of things, you have the Seattle Seahawks at 12-3. They have a nice little cushion over the 2 seed Chicago Bears, who are 11-4. Then we get to my Philadelphia Eagles, the 3 seed at 10-5. Similarly, in the NFC, you have the Carolina Panthers at the moment as the 4 seed, but they have not clinched a playoff spot and actually have worse odds than Tampa to get there. Excuse me. And then the 2 wild card spots in the NFC West, 2 of them have already been locked up. The San Francisco 49ers and the Los Angeles Rams, currently 5-6 respectively. And you will have the Green Bay Packers duking it out with the Detroit Lions. Tampa only can win the NFC South. On the AFC side of things, Houston and Indianapolis, they're fighting for either the division or the last playoff spot. or last wild card, I should say. And then the Baltimore Ravens can only win the AFC North. They have only a 9% chance of making that happen. However, Raider Jim, looking ahead, your thoughts on the playoff picture with only 2 weeks to go.
Well, I'll tell you, looking at all the players who have already made it, I mean, players, by players, I mean the teams. Let me tell you, the team I don't want to play if I'm in the AFC is Jacksonville. Jacksonville is that sneaky team that's just waiting in the wings and letting everybody else get all the press and all the highlight reels and everything else. But Jacksonville showed what they were made of last week. They went into Mile High, took care of business, and Trevor Lawrence, when we talk about that game, I'll pay my regards to him, and he's coming around at the right time. The switch has finally flipped, it looks like, and watch out. This kid's only 26 years old, playing out of his mind right now. And the other teams, like I say, the Steelers, I still am not picking the Steelers week in and week out, but my goodness, they're playing some decent ball. You got to hand it to them. On the other side of it, if Josh Allen doesn't get it done this year, this may be it. I mean, we already saw Patrick Mahomes may have seen his last playoffs and Super Bowl for who knows when, how long. I don't think it'll be next year. If Josh Allen can't get it done, I don't know that he's going to have many more opportunities. He's got kind of an aging team. They're not ancient by any stretch, but they're having trouble putting up points. Let's just be honest about it. And the Colts, gosh darn, dadgummit, if you will.
Yep.
That was not Phillip Rivers' fault last night. By any stretch, can anybody look and say, he's too old, he shouldn't have been out there? He was fine. Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, he's another guy. I think his chances now are in the rearview mirror. That's where you're going to see it. Going to be interesting to see what happens and how it finally fills out. But that's what I think on the AFC. On the NFC, what's going on with the Packers?
Yeah.
I don't get it. I mean, they're the number 7 seed right now, and that's going to be, they're probably going to have to fight to hang on to that maybe a little bit. 49ers, that's the team I don't want to play right now. 49ers and Seahawks. But you and I said it early in the season, NFC West could very well be the best division in football right now. The Rams, the 49ers, the Seahawks. If one of those teams is not in the championship game, or if it's not a head-to-head, and if one of them is not in the Super Bowl, I'm going to be surprised.
I agree. The NFC West, I mean, again, we'll take the Cardinals out of it. I mean, somebody has to be kind of the black sheep of the family, if you will. But you could make a case for any of those 3 teams, whether it be Seattle, Los Angeles, or San Francisco, as the best team in the league. And that's pretty crazy. Obviously, last week, as my cat goes crazy behind me, I swear the camera goes on and she just turns into an absolute menace. But last Thursday, I turned that game off. It was 30 to, I think, 14. Darnold had just thrown, I think, his second pick of the day. The Rams winning, no problem. It looked like, okay, they're going to roll the success. And then I wake up in the middle of the night, look at my phone and realize, they came back and won that game. Seattle currently the top dog in the NFC. Going back to Josh Allen, I agree with you. If you look at it and you go, look, there's no Patrick Mahomes, probably no Lamar Jackson, and Josh Allen can't get it done in this climate. No disrespect to the other teams that are fighting for this as well, but that's always kind of been the, he just can't get over the hump, mainly over the Chiefs, but also I think you can throw the Ravens in there once or twice. But those were kind of the holy trinity of, obviously Patrick was at the top of that because it seemed like Lamar and Josh could not beat Patrick when it mattered most. Now it doesn't look like Patrick's definitely not going to be there. Lamar doesn't seem to be ready to roll there. If Josh Allen can't get it done, that will be tough. But that's kind of how I feel about Buffalo, the way you feel about Jacksonville. Even with all their warts, Buffalo is that team in the AFC. They are the scary ones. They are the team that has proven it, or at least proven it more than any of the others. On the NFC side of things, obviously, I'm very Eagle-centric on this. And it does look like pretty much the 3 seed is going to be where we're going to be locked in. I think we'll get a lot more clarity this weekend. Personally, I think it wouldn't be the worst thing. I'd love to be the 2 seed, but I would kind of like to be locked in going week 18 to where the game doesn't matter so that we can sit guys down and we don't have to really kind of juggle or scoreboard watch or anything like that. But in the NFC as a whole, I agree with you. I think one of the 3 teams, because I think currently right now, San Francisco does control their destiny to win or to be the 1 seed. They will have to beat Seattle. I believe that might be the last week of the season. But if San Francisco can get in there, that is the team, I believe, with Shanahan, with Purdy, with those guys that all seem to be healthy and clicking at the right time. The one concern I do have with San Francisco, the pass rush has been pretty non-existent this year. Defense has been okay, but that pass rush might be needed as we do dive into the next year, or into the postseason, I should say. It's a nice little segue because we'll just give our thoughts on last week. And the one thing that I will say, I think you have to start talking about Phillip Rivers, or at least when you start talking about last week, it's got to start with Phillip Rivers. Monday Night Football performance, that was incredible for anyone, but for a 44-year-old who, 12 days ago was essentially figuring out what next year's high school schedule was going to look like. He went out there Monday Night Football, went toe-to-toe with a pretty darn good defense. The one thing I will say, it's been kind of, and it's been talked about a lot over the last 24 hours on social media, but we kind of remember the glory days, or at least for me, the glory days of quarterbacks of Brady, Breeze, Rivers, Matt Ryan, Andrew Luck, obviously Peyton Manning. I'll throw Eli in there as well, Andy Dalton. And the full call-outs, 15, 20-second checks. Now you'll see quarterbacks, they'll get to the line. The most you'll see is maybe they'll say kill, 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 or they'll, make a hand motion. They're changing the play. Phillip Rivers last night was changing every wide receiver's routes. He was changing the offensive line schemes. It was incredible. And, Brady talked about it, I think, last year. Teams just aren't really asking a lot out of their young quarterbacks because they're having to be put in so early. And I think that's what we are losing. And just to be able to see Phillip Rivers, I think it was the second pass, 15 seconds on the line, checking to everything, snap, 15-yard pass, guys wide open. I just loved it. Raider Jim, your thoughts on last week?
Let me tell you, I agree with you 100% on Phillip Rivers. I was watching that game last night, and I was glued watching him because I geek out when I see the quarterbacks doing that kind of thing. And for him to come out, 44 years old, second game back after X amount of time off, and to go up and watch him command. They often refer to the quarterback as the field general. That's why, because that's what these guys are doing. And I liked the old school, go up, bark at everybody, point across the line at number 48 on the defense and call him out by number, basically saying the fool ain't going to blitz and I'm going to go right at him. It was fantastic. What a game. And again, too bad for the end result. It wasn't his fault. I can't say it was his fault that they lost. And even when he wasn't on the field as the quarterback, something as simple as missed call by the down marker official, missed call, or not so much missed, but delayed reaction to advancing the down, and they were calling it 2nd and 10 when it was 3rd and 10. And you see Rivers holding up 3 fingers, barking down the sideline, marching towards the coach, reminding everybody it's 3rd down. He has become the player coach, if you will. When he's on the field, wow, what an opportunity they have. If they can win 2 and somehow get into the playoffs as a wild card, that would be fantastic. I don't think it's going to happen, but wow, it would be quite a story if that would happen. Other games last week, we were talking about Josh Allen. My goodness, Buffalo Bills shut out in the 4th quarter. barely got away with a victory over Shedeur Sanders and the Cleveland Browns. That doesn't bode well for confidence when you're going into the playoffs. The Cowboys, my gosh, dismantled by the Chargers at home. Their season is all but done. Joe Burrow, good game. And a lot of points on the board for the Bengals at 45 points. The Titans, we kind of touched on that. 9 points. And here I was getting ready for the Gardner Minshew comeback of the year. And now he's out for the season. So he's done. What else do you say? The Panthers, the Buccaneers, unfortunately, much as I'm on the side of calling for Baker Mayfield all the time, I did say that I didn't think they were going to get past Carolina, and they did not. So it's shaping up that depending on what happens this weekend, Week 18, last game of the season, Panthers, Buccaneers, that could be one to watch. And that's the one that deserves to be on Thursday Night Football or Monday Night Football, one of those. Jaguars, we already touched on that. They went into Denver, Mile High, took care of business. The Lions, wow. That was another statement made by the Lions that we're not the Lions that we used to be. And they too could this could be the beginning of a long restructure. I wouldn't say so much rebuild, but they're going to have to figure out what's going on here. Good games. And yeah, the Raiders put up 21 points, which means absolutely nothing.
Hey, look, good teams win football games. Great teams cover, Raider Jim, and they covered with ease. It was never in question. The one thing that I think's really jumping out to me, and maybe it's like this every year, I'm just, obviously in it right now, but I feel like every single team that's in the playoffs or is going to be in the playoffs has some major, kink in the armor. There is something that you can point to and say, this is why this team cannot win. I look at Buffalo and their offense is inconsistent. Yes. But my bigger concern is how bad their run defense is. I think when we do talk about playoff football, the run game is magnified because you're more than likely going into a less than ideal weather situation, especially when you are Buffalo, especially if you get home games. We'll see about that. But either way, that is something you are going to be worried about. And then even look with Seattle, I understand they're the 1 seed. They have, the best record in the NFC. I get that. But I think we all still have, I don't want to say doubts, but we're all still kind of waiting for Sam Darnold to really, because even within that win over the Rams, it was like, hey, you know what? You got the big win, but you also had a tough first half or a tough 3 quarters. And look, you got the win. That's all that matters. But that was it was a little quirky, let's be honest. And I don't think there are going to be a ton of people that will be overly optimistic if Sam Darnold is leading that team out on Championship Sunday against whether it is a Packers or a Niners or, an Eagles when it comes to that playoff expertise or at least that playoff experience, I should say. And then this will be a nice little segue as we dive into week 17. But I have great news for everyone. Folks, the Kool-Aid has no longer been recalled. I got a brick and mortar store. I'm going for it. The Kool-Aid is back. Ascengenti, 5 yards a carry, 128 yards. And you know what? Yeah, you're right. It doesn't matter. But for my friend Raider Jim and all of his compatriots in Raider Nation, I want to, again, give you a little bit of copium or at least ways to get through this. Again, it's called tankathon.com. It gives you the up-to-date draft listings or draft order. Currently, the Raiders have the number 2 pick. Fernando Mendoza, the super quarterback out of Indiana, would be their pick according to Tankathon. Now, interesting, they would essentially kind of get their choice, if you will, assuming the Giants do not go quarterback. But what I'm thinking, I think the Raiders go crazy and they call up John Harbaugh and they say, hey, I don't think you like your quarterback very much. Why don't you send Lamar over here? We'll give you a third or a fourth round pick. And that allows the Raiders to go out and look at the defensive side of the ball, because I think this draft very, very heavy on the defensive side, whether it is safety Caleb Downs, whether you have Ruben Bain, who was incredible this past weekend in the playoff games, or there are two outstanding offensive tackles that the Raiders can get. I really do think for the Raiders, if they can get themselves a veteran quarterback that allows them to maybe build in some pieces at the top end of the draft that aren't, look, I like Fernando Mendoza. I like the kid out of Oregon whose name is escaping me, Dante Moore. But I just think there are safer picks on the defensive side, mainly Caleb Downs, but he is a safety. Edge may be more in need. But with that being said, just want to give a little copium to Raider Nation. It's almost over, and then draft season begins, and then it's a lot of fun. But with that being said, we have the Raiders facing off. They will be hosting the New York Giants, the top two teams in Tankathon. This will be going big for the draft. The Raiders, been a little while since I said this. The Raiders are going to be 1.5 point favorites. 42.5 is your over under. The Giants are even money on the money line, and the Raiders are minus 120. Nobody talks Raider football before Raider Jim on this pod. Raider Jim, the floor is yours.
Boy, I'll tell you what, who thought it was going to come down to this? You look at the schedule at the beginning of the year, and Raider Nation was saying, oh man, look at, and then we play the Giants on Christmas weekend. Ha ha ha. Who knew it was going to be 2 and 12, 2 and whatever the records are, 13 teams facing off against each other for bragging rights. And I don't know what the bragging rights is. Do you get bragging rights if you lose because
yes,
you're stabilizing your draft pick choice position? I think you do. And that's why I believe the Giants are going to go out, and the Giants are going to somehow find a way to cough this one away too. They're terrible. But really, in all seriousness, I don't think it's going to be hard to say. It's a 1.5 point spread at home. 1.5 at home against the Giants. This is how miserable these two teams are. Nobody's got any. Geno Smith is not going to be the answer on Sunday. I don't think the defense is going to be any better than it has been. The Raiders did score 21 points last week, but not enough to win the game. And that's not a statement against Houston either. That's not to say, oh my gosh, be worried about Houston. No, sometimes you play down to your level of competition, and I think that's what the Texans did. This coming week in Las Vegas, what's going to happen is Giants are going to come out. They're going to establish a running game as best they can. Then they're going to open up some passing. Raiders are going to play Raider defense all the way around, and then Geno Smith is going to cause turnovers. He's just going to do it because that's what he does. Ashton Jenney is going to be back to a 50-yard, 60-yard game. So in this one, give me the Giants on the money line and give me under 43, because I think it's going to just be as boring as it sounds like. Best thing for this game is, if it wasn't Christmas weekend, I would go, because you can get a ticket for under $70.
That's pretty good. That's enticing. That might be the cheapest ticket in Vegas.
Yes.
It doesn't happen too often, but I'm actually going to disagree on both sides here. I do think the Raiders. Now, the hard part is, we kind of touched on it. There's an old South Park episode. It's when the kids are playing baseball, and essentially they realize, oh my gosh, like, we're going to lose our entire summer vacation because we're playing Little League baseball, but all we got to do is lose, and then it ends. But what they don't understand is the other team is thinking the exact same thing. So it turns into an entire summer of who can lose fastest so that they can get this. In the front offices, I guarantee you, everyone is cheering for losses in those front offices. They want the one overall pick. No doubt about it. On the field, It's very different. I don't think you can sit here and tell me that, oh, Kenny Pickett or Geno Smith or Max Crosby, they're going to be told by the front office, hey, it'd be real nice if you lose this weekend so that we could possibly draft your future replacement. Yeah, I don't think that really jives too well for professional athletes. So I think on both sides of the ball, you're going to see the best out of these players. Now, the best is relative here. If you do have to watch this game, I do believe there is a hotline. I believe it's like the hostage hotline. I'm sure there will be somebody that will be able to come out and take your report. This is a tough one. As you kind of mentioned, the schedule makers. This is kind of a sick little joke. But I like the Raiders here. I do think the Giants defense and their lack of run defense is going to be big, and maybe I'm just that Kool-Aid went straight to the noggin, and it is still toxic, and the brain worm has started to eat at me. But I do think last week we saw the start of something special from Ashton Genty. I think Pete Carroll looked around and said, "Look, I can't trust Kenny Pickett. I can't trust Geno Smith. I can't trust anybody that throws the football. Let's just try and run it." And see what happens. And I do like the over here. I think we have two really bad defenses on both sides. And you kind of mentioned Geno Smith causing turnovers. Well, we might have a pick six in our bag. And with only 42.5, this is a little bit higher than I would have liked. But again, I think you have two bad defenses, and Jackson Dart wasn't great last week, but the Raiders showed me something. Maybe the Texans did play down the competition, but the Texans are a really good football team, and the Raiders pushed them at the very least. I don't know if it was ever really in doubt, but they made it a lot closer than it was ever supposed to be. So give me the Raiders money line. I'm not going to mess around with 1.5 points. It's just a missed extra point away from me pulling my hair out. And then over 42.5. I'm actually, let me buy a half a point. Let's do 42 there. I'll take a push before I'm cheering for a 43 there. So with that being said, moving on to a very intriguing possible playoff preview. The Houston Texans heading to Los Angeles to face the Chargers. The Chargers are going to be 1-point favorites in this one. Your over-under sits at 39.5. This is one of your Saturday games, so keep an eye on that. Obviously, 3 Thursday games, 2 Saturday games, and then we have our Sunday slate. But and then, of course, Monday Night Football. But the money line has Houston minus 105, the Chargers minus 115. Pretty much just looking at the money line here. But Raider Jim, your thoughts? Houston at Los Angeles.
Yeah, and before I speak to this game, and we're talking AFC West, how do you think those NFL schedulers are feeling right now when they sat there during the preseason and said, Christmas Day, let's give the fans a real gift. Let's have the Chiefs and the Broncos playing on Christmas Day. Nobody's going to watch that game. Matter of fact, you really wonder how many of the starters are going to play for Denver or for how long. Why would you risk it? Just don't even bother. Anyway, that has nothing to do with the game I'm going to talk about, which is Houston going into SoFi Stadium and facing off against the Chargers. What a game. Now, this is a game that people didn't see coming either, but there's a lot of playoff ramifications in this. Houston has to win if they want to try to stay in a position to catch or surpass Jacksonville. Now, that also means Jacksonville's got to lose, but Jacksonville's playing hot ball right now. Chargers, same thing. So there's a lot of where are we going to end up in the playoffs put on the shoulders of both sides on this game. Houston, so they're not really playing to stay alive. They're just playing to stay within striking distance of Jacksonville. The Chargers, let me tell you what, Justin Herbert, that kid is just on fire. He is really something. And their running game has come around. However, with that being said, beaten up against or on the Cowboys defense, that's not the Houston Texans defense. And I'm wondering what's going to happen with the Charger offensive line this week. Is Houston going to put a lot of pressure? Are they going to make Herbert move all around the pocket? Are they going to take away some of his plays? I think the Chargers are still going to put up points. They're just not going to put up points to take care of Houston this coming week, because the Houston offense is playing pretty darn good ball, and they're putting up their fair share of points too when they need to. Are they going to get over 20 points against the Chargers? Yeah, they will. Are they going to hold the Chargers in check? Probably not shut them out by any means. But when you look at the over-under at 39.5, I'm going to go over all day long on that number, because I think we're going to see, even if it is a 23-20 game, even if it is 27-24, we're going to see over 40 points in this game. And I like Houston on the money line on this one, but it's going to be a great game to watch.
Yeah, the Chargers actually, if they win out, it does not matter what Denver does. If the Chargers win out, they win the AFC West. And that could possibly also mean a 1 seed as well. I don't know where the tiebreakers fall when it comes to New England, but those are always kind of moving when you don't have head-to-head. So that'll just be, for the day of, we'll have to see how that goes. But the Chargers, you brought it up. I think the pressure point is how well the Chargers offensive line can hold up. And myself, I don't think they're going to hold up very well. I think you have two factors. The Chargers clinch the playoff spot. Obviously, they want to win the division. They want to be the 1 seed if possible. I get that. However, I just think they've been riding on such a high. You have Justin Herbert, who still can't be fully healed from the broken hand on his non-throwing hand. I think some of that magic wears off against the Houston team that I don't want to say was embarrassed that they didn't beat the Raiders by more, but I do think there were some people in that locker room maybe that were a little frustrated and maybe said, hey, we went into this a little more lackadaisical, and, that's not going to happen. I like Houston as well on the money line. I think they win this game easily. I think this is very similar to what we saw when the Chargers played Indy early on. I think when we saw them play the Commanders, because the Chargers in their losses, they've been blown out. I think they might have had one close game, but they've been blown out in their losses. I see that happening here. And with that being said, I think we are going to stay under. I seriously look at this game as a 24-6, 27-6 type game. I think Houston beats the Chargers down, and I wouldn't be surprised if by the third quarter, Jim Harbaugh kind of throws in the towel, puts in Trey Lance, because he just can't see Justin Herbert continue to get hit, knowing, look, the division is done now, but we got to keep this kid healthy going forward. Just kind of the way I see it. It's going to be a tough one on Saturday for both of these teams. It is going to be good, though. I really am excited to see. I'm excited to be wrong, because I don't want this game to be a blowout. I want it to be good, but everything I'm looking at right now, it just seems like this is a perfect moment for the Chargers to slip up. Just seems like the road is there in front of them, and following this franchise for as long as I have, this is normally the time where they stub their toe. So just kind of how I'm seeing it there. Give me Houston money line under 39.5. That'll be your Saturday game. Moving on to a interesting one. A couple years back, this was kind of the beginning of the end for the Philadelphia Eagles when they beat the Buffalo Bills, but hopefully that is not the case this year. This time they are heading to Buffalo to face Josh Allen and the Bills. The Bills are going to be 2.5-point favorites, and the over-under is 45. Your current money line has the Eagles plus 120. Excuse me. And the Bills minus 140. Obviously, last week, the Eagles took care of business. It didn't start very well on Saturday. First kickoff of the game, Will Shipley fumbles. And it didn't look great, if we're being honest. And even about 5, 6, 7 minutes into the third quarter, it was looking a little testy. I think there was some angst going on around Eagles Nation at that time. And then unfortunately, Marcus Mariota ended up having to leave the game. And the man who just never seems to go away, The USD alum himself, Josh Johnson, returns. And look, he did as well as Josh Johnson at 37 is going to do. The Eagles end up getting the job done and clinch a second straight NFC East title. As I mentioned, this is the first time anyone's gone back-to-back in that division in over 20 years. With that being said, the Eagles, again, they'll need a miracle to move up ahead of Chicago. I mean, they'd need Detroit or Green Bay to pass Chicago to pass them because they have the tie break over both of those teams. The Eagles do, I should say. It's just not looking great for the Eagles to move up to the 2 seed. So with that being said, I think you do start to maybe pull back on the reins a little bit. Maybe we're not seeing everyone going full bore, and maybe we're starting to see guys getting taken off the field early on if certain games don't go the way we need them to. So with that being said, I like Buffalo -2.5. And then in terms of the over-under, I did have the weather up here. I don't believe we have any major weather. I know there's a lot of maybe rain. Yeah, so it will be raining. 39 degrees. So maybe if that drops a lot lower, maybe you worry about snow. But, if you're talking about Buffalo on, the Saturday or the Sunday after Christmas, and you're talking about 38, 39 degrees, that's barbecue weather. I think we're getting pretty lucky there, all things considered, how it normally goes. The one concern, I have plenty of concerns with the Eagles, but maybe my newest concern is Jake Elliott. He went from Jake the Make to now Missy Elliott. And yes, I've heard both of them over the past few weeks and years. Look, there are a lot of people in Philadelphia and in the fandom that make it seem that you just throw that guy out and you just pull up some other guy and he's going to go 95% going forward. It's not that easy. If it was week 5 or 6 and we maybe had a few weeks to figure something out and bring multiple guys in, maybe, just maybe, with all due respect to Jake Elliott. But look, we're going to have to ride with Jake Elliott. I don't think it's smart to be even thinking about changing it at the kicker position. I'm not confident in him, but again, I have more confidence in him than I do in somebody who is currently unemployed right now. So just my thought process, but it is something that is, I think, in the forefront of every Eagle fan going forward. Now, the good news for the Eagles, Jalen Carter and Lane Johnson are both expected to be back. But again, I don't think the Eagles really need this one too much. They're pretty much locked in at the 3 seed. And again, there could be some results that happen earlier in the day that essentially lock them in. And who knows at that point. So, and Buffalo is fighting for everything right now. They are in the playoffs, but they want that division. Buffalo -2.5 over 45. Raider Jim, your thoughts, Philadelphia at Buffalo.
Yeah, you said it. Both teams are in. So what are we going to see out there? How long do you keep people out there? How long do you roll the dice and hope somebody doesn't get hurt that you really, really need? Buffalo 6-1 at home. The Eagle offense has been a little bit challenged against their better caliber opponents, like the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo is also riding a 4-game winning streak. I think, and Josh Allen has, I don't know if it's severe by any stretch. I'm sure it is not, but he does have a bad foot right now, which could take away a little bit of his threat to be too big of a running, his run game. However, Eagle defense, you better watch out, because as long as James Cook puts on his pads and his shoes, he can run over you, he can run around you, and you might be seeing a lot of his back if you aren't careful and cut him off. And I think that could be the difference in this one. I think Buffalo definitely covers on this one. I like them beating, 2.5. Yeah, you know what? I'll take 2.5. I'm fine with that. And I'm with you. I'm going to go under 45.5 on this one. I don't think it's going to be a lot of points, because I think it's going to be a little more conservative. Buffalo might play a little more on the edge because they do want to win the whole thing and get, boost their position in the playoffs seedings. But I think that's their game. They're going to do it again at home.
Yeah, and I meant to bring this up as well. Saquon Barkley does look like he is rounding into form, and this would be a fantastic time. Again, getting Lane Johnson back and going up against a Buffalo run defense that is not great, but we come back to the elephant in the room. How much of the starters are we going to see from Philadelphia? Because I don't want to see anyone out there unnecessarily just to say, oh, well, we won 12 games instead of 11 or whatever it would be. You know, we're here to win championships. So keep an eye on that. Again, that is a 125 game. So I'm not 100% sure of all the, seating, things like that. So we'll see. I know Nick Sirianni and the coaching staff are going to be prepared for whatever is needed. But as we do get towards this time of year, as a bettor, you need to be aware of what teams are actually playing for. So moving on to Sunday Night Football. It is the San Francisco 49ers hosting the NFC North leading Chicago Bears, the cardiac kids themselves. The Niners are going to be 3-point favorites here. The over-under is 51. This will be your Sunday Night Football game. Raider Jim, I'll give you first crack at this one. Chicago at San Francisco.
I heard the Bears referred to today as the Rodney Dangerfields of the NFC right now, because here they are at 11-4, and they're still not getting a ton of respect. Maybe they've brought that upon themselves. I said it and let me go back to week 16. Let me tell you how Raider Jim's season has been going as far as picking winners and losers and things like that. I had Green Bay on the money line and the under last week. And as they went into the last, few seconds of the game, I had my cigar out. I was getting all excited. Told you they were going to do it. And my God, those Chicago Bears, those pesky Chicago Bears did what they had to do. And hats off to them. People can say what they want to say about it, but they ended up with more points and they won the game. Going into this week, though, San Francisco 49ers, are not the Green Bay Packers. They're a much better team. Both teams 11-4. San Francisco offense has been firing on all cylinders. McCaffrey is running like the old guy. Now, what about George Kittle, though? He got dinged up a little bit. How well is he going to be when they play against the Bears? I haven't seen a report. I don't know how bad it is. They're playing for the top seed in the NFC. Bears, a lot of fight. The offense isn't doing too bad, but they're not really out there. They're not destroying people with points. And the defense for the Bears, I think, is still going to continue to be the Achilles heel, if you will, because the 49ers are going to come out. Robert Saleh, he's doing real well with the 49er defense, except they don't put pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah.
They're not getting through the offensive line. And name me some people in the secondary. You can't. They're competitive, but it's like they don't have go-to guys out there. I'm watching the game I'm watching not that long ago, and it might have been last night's game. And I'm like, who are these guys back there? And how did they get that wide open? And how can you not see what Rivers is doing to you folks? So we'll see what happens, but I think the offense is going to continue to fire. Purdy is going to have another good game. If he's got a tight end and a strong running back, watch out, because his line's going to protect him. And again, the Bears defense, their Achilles heel, and they're not going to be able to get the job done against San Francisco. I do like San Francisco -2.5 in this one. Over under 51.5, just because the 49ers have been putting up points. I will go over on this one.
Yeah, I also like the Niners here. Obviously, it's just a matter of which way I'm buying that half a point when I see a -3 spread. So give me San Francisco. minus 2.5. You mentioned it. The offense for the Niners is starting to kind of round into form. I think early on in the season when Purdy was out for that extended period of time, and you think about it and you're like, oh, it's Mac Jones, and you kind of just forget about him. And they weren't on prime time a ton, but they just kept plugging away. They just kept winning football games. And here we are. We're going to see them Sunday Night Football. Brock Purdy is back. Christian McCaffrey, as you mentioned, looks like he is back into the prime of his career. And if there's one guy in this league who seems to always get banged up, it is George Kittle. So if anybody can fight through it, I would think it is him. I really, really like the San Francisco 49ers a lot. And I think this is, I don't want to call it a statement game because that would kind of assume that like nobody really believes in this team, but I think a lot of people do. I think the Niners take care of business rather handily here. I think they are by far the better football team. No disrespect to the Bears. They've been a great story, but they've also, every year we have those teams that they're kind of a statistical anomaly. Again, you look at their defense statistically and you kind of scratch your head and you're like, what's going on? And even on the offensive side of the ball, they're good running the football, but even, throwing the ball, they're average to below average. And then of course you look and you see the turnover differential and you go, okay, now I see why they are where they are. And then even last week, just getting those weird little, look, these days, if you get a onside kick recovery, you got to call it like it is. It's lucky. I'm sorry. I'm not going to sit here and give a special teams coach cookies because the ball bounced left instead of right or whatever it is. Yeah. You get lucky. And for Chicago, that's all well and good. But we all know what happens with luck. It runs out eventually. And I'm not saying It runs out here, but I just think the Bears, while they are a good team, I don't think they're a great team. And I think a lot of the luck that they've kind of gotten has obscured that. Sure, there will be a lot of people who are, going to be in the comment section screaming about this or that. But I'm sorry. I just call it like I see them. I think the Bears are a little bit of a paper tiger. So give me the Niners minus 2.5. They know if they win out, they are the top seed in the NFC. That is a hell of a carrot to be chasing. And then I am going to go under 51 because, again, I really do think the Niners defense is nasty and they get after it. And I think they maybe make Caleb Williams' life a living hell. Caleb Williams has been very good this year. And I do think he is going to be just fine. Definitely not a bust or anything like that, but I think he's playing a little above his skis. Give me San Francisco buying that half a point, minus 2.5 and under the 51. Moving on to another possible playoff matchup, this time in the NFC. Oh, goodness, NFC. We have the Seattle Seahawks heading to Carolina to face the surprising Carolina Panthers. The Seahawks are going to be 7-point favorites on the road. 42.5 is your over-under. Money line side of things, Seattle is minus 340 and Carolina is plus 270. Raider Jim, your thoughts, Seattle at Carolina.
Yeah, I appreciate what Carolina has done, and I appreciate that they are staying there, holding the fort and maybe coming down to a head-to-head game against Tampa Bay the last week of the season to see who's going to be number one in their division. However, they're coming up against a dynamic team. Seattle's going to be able to run against the Carolina Panthers, and that's going to be key because if they establish even just a moderate running game, moderate success, they're going to open up play action passing scenarios, and that bodes very not good for the Carolina Panthers because man-to-man coverage isn't their thing. And then Seattle's just going to start picking at will, and they're just going to put holes all over the secondary of the Carolina Panthers. Seattle wins. I think if they win this one, they get top seed. And they're going to be playing the 49ers for top seed.
Yeah, it'll be winner
It'll
take
be one or the other.
correct. Next week.
Yes. So I think Seattle's going to go out. I think they're going to play like everything. It means everything to them. Do they cover 7? Yeah, give me a half a point. Seattle minus 6.5. Do they go over 42.5? I think so, because I think Seattle's going to put up some points.
Yeah, and it is kind of weird, because I kind of fell into it too. You hear, oh, the 49ers control their destiny. And then you're like, well, yeah, but the Seahawks also control their destiny. It's kind of like one of those things like, hey, it's more than likely just going to come down to that one game. And I see it the exact same way, Raider Jim. I'm going to buy a half a point. I'd almost want to buy a full point again, just because this year it just seems like there have been so many missed extra points. That pivot point might move from 7 to 6, at least on the betting side of things. But I'll just do a half a point for here. I think for Seattle, they know they win this, and it all sets up what needs to be done next week, and they want to be the 1 seed. For Carolina, and this is all assuming the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defeat Miami this weekend. But for Carolina, this game isn't, it is a big game, but more than likely next week is going to be the determination of whether or not Carolina makes the playoffs. Again, Tampa Bay goes out and they lay an egg, and Carolina goes out and they win this week. Boom, they've won the division. Great. Again, I just don't think that happens. We're not going to dive deep into the Tampa Bay Miami game, but Tampa Bay is a road favorite there. And obviously Seattle is a heavy favorite here. The odds do not look like we are going to see the NFC South clinch this weekend. I just think Seattle has more to play for. And the other part of it as well, I think Mike McDonald getting an extra 3 days to prepare, because the Seahawks played that Thursday. You get that kind of mini bye. I think that plays into it as well. And again, with all due respect to our friends out there in Carolina, I don't see Carolina as a huge home field advantage. I don't think there are players that are shaking in their boots. Look, DK Metcalf would still probably punch someone in the face there, but still, it's not everybody gets, mess or gets very upset at the Carolina fans or anything like that. Not a huge home field advantage there, and partly cloudy as I'm looking at the weather report there, so nothing to really worry about. I also like Seattle 6.5. I am going to go under here, though. I think Seattle's defense controls Bryce Young, and I think Seattle offensively has been, that's probably their, the one side that they need to work on, and I think they're not going to put a whole lot on film a week before possibly their biggest game. And same thing for Carolina. Both of these teams are both kind of one eye looking through to the next week. I don't know. That just kind of seems like an under for me. I think both offenses played conservative. Don't want to put too much on film for their big divisional matchups next week. So give me Seattle minus 6.5, under 42.5. Moving on to Monday Night Football. We have the Los Angeles Rams already clinched. They are heading to Atlanta, already eliminated. The Rams are going to be 8-point favorites in this one. Your over-under sits at 49.5. On the money line side of things, the Rams are minus 410 and the Falcons are plus 305. Again, Monday Night Football. Raider Jim, your thoughts? Rams at Falcons.
Boy, there it is. Monday Night Football, the Falcons, the Rams. That sounded like a great game 2 years ago. Doesn't sound like a great game to end up Monday Night Football for 2025. I think the Rams come out, even though they've already clinched, they want to make sure that they keep their guys safe, but at the same time, they want to take care of business, make sure that they get their best seed potential out there. Do they beat the Falcons? Absolutely. Do they cover the spread? Give me half a point, 7.5. I think they will cover, though. Over 49.5, just because the Rams are a point scoring machine, Yeah, I'll take over 49.5 on this one. Might actually buy a point on this one and go to 48.5, but I still think it's going to be all Rams all night long.
Yeah, I'm gonna buy a half a point the other way. So let's all hope for an 8-point victory for the Rams and everyone's a winner. But I like the Falcons plus 8.5 here. And it's kind of what you mentioned earlier. You know, the Rams. Also, with them playing Monday Night Football, they'll kind of know what needs to be done, or yes. So they'll kind of have that. They're they're the last one on the course, if you will, for a little golf analogy there. And I think the Rams definitely win this game, but I don't know. 8 points is a lot on the road, Monday Night Football. I think the fans of the Falcons, you're going to have a lot of people who look. They got Christmas presents, Falcons tickets in the mail, or under the tree. And you know what? They're not really going to care that the Falcons aren't very good. This is probably their only chance to go, or their one game of the season. And it's Monday Night Football. You might take the day off, and maybe you take a little social sparklers and you enjoy the day. I don't know. I think you could see a little bit of a rowdy crowd. And again, the games after Christmas are always a little weird because you get a lot of people that maybe didn't expect to be going to the game a week ago because they were surprised, and they don't really care. Like, and maybe Vegas isn't the best example of this, but I think there are going to be some kids waking up in Clark County that are super pumped that they're going to the Raiders game. And look, we all know Raiders-Giants, probably not the greatest game ever, but look, those kids are going, or those people are going, and they're super excited. I think we can maybe see the same thing here for Atlanta. And as you mentioned, I think the 49.5, I'll buy a half a point. We'll go over 49 here. I'll take the push if need be. But I really like the Rams offense. I think Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, an incredible 1-2 punch. I mean, Puka Nacua is a weapon, even though he needs to maybe make better decisions off the field. Yeah. Maybe don't live stream with certain people, but anyways, I'm sure you've all seen that. Anyways, and also Puka, maybe do a little more research into concussions. Anyways, the Rams, give me Atlanta, plus 8.5. Over 49 over 49, I'm buying a half a point. I also really like Bijan Robinson. I don't know. I there's just something, I love watching that guy play. Atlanta is one team that I just kind of shake my head, and I just don't understand how they are as bad as they are, even before the Michael Penix injury, and Kirk Cousins entering. But moving on to what is essentially an elimination game for Old Man Rivers. Phillip Rivers, to be exact. The Jacksonville Jaguars, they are heading to Indianapolis to face the Colts. The Jaguars are 6.5-point favorites. Your over-under is 47.5. On the money line side of things, you have the Jaguars minus 285, Indy plus 240. A loss for Indy would eliminate them, and even then, they're still going to need some help. But Raider Jim, your thoughts? Jacksonville at Indianapolis. Excuse me.
I said it when you hit record. The team I don't want to play is Jacksonville right now. I think they're probably the hottest team. Let me tell you where Trevor Lawrence is at over the last 4 weeks. Over the last 4 weeks, he's got the highest rating of all quarterbacks. Again, the last 4 weeks, not the entire season. He's got 12 touchdown passes over the last 4 weeks. His plays versus his turnovers is off the charts. It is so, it used to be the talk about Trevor Lawrence was, yeah, he's good, but boy, does he turn over the ball. Yeah, he's good, but boy, does he make mistakes. He's not making mistakes. He's efficient. He's confident. And like I said earlier, it's like it's something snapped, the switch flipped, however you want to put it. But he's playing really, really good ball right now. And if he lights it up like he did over the last 4 weeks, Indianapolis doesn't stand a chance. As much as I'd like to see this Cinderella story with Phillip Rivers, here's the other thing that's going to happen. combination of Denver losses, New England losses, guess who becomes the number 1 seed in the AFC?
Wow.
Jacksonville does. And there's nothing that says that can't happen at this point. Here's the other fascinating fact. The Jacksonville rush defense is pretty darn good. I think they're 3rd overall average, over the last several weeks. They give up like 3.5 yards or something like that per design play. The Colts, so I heard this fascinating fact today. The Colts, when they rush for 110 or more yards, they're 7-0. Anything less than that, they're 1-7. Now,
there it is.
When you look at it like that, and here's the other thing you have, starting center for the Colts is going to be out because he's still in concussion protocol. So you've got the backup center playing. You got a left tackle who lined up in the backfield yet last night at a very pivotal point. And I'm looking and I'm like, how? The size of this guy, how does his guard not look at him and go, hey, get even with my ankles? And little things like that, which I think is going to make it not an easier task, but it's going to allow the Jacksonville defensive line to control the box, which I talk about a lot when we do the podcast. Control the box, you control the game. If they shut down that Colts run offense and they put it on Phillip Rivers, and let's be honest, as happy as we are to see him bark out plays and orchestrate the way he does, the arm's not there. The miscues are there. Underthrow, overthrow, and hey, he's 44 years old. He hasn't been playing competitively for 5 years. He's doing a heck of a lot better than I probably ever would. So given that, all those variables, Jacksonville wins this one -6.5. 47.5, the over-under. I'm going to say under because I don't think Jacksonville's going to need to run it up, and I don't think they will run it up.
Yeah, this might be my upset pick of the week.
No.
I don't know if they're going to win this game, but I think Indy covers here. I would not be surprised if Indy wins this game. I don't know. I think Phillip Rivers it's only been 2 weeks. I get that. But week 1, we're talking, 5 days after he was signed, essentially. He played okay, 185 yards, whatever. Last night, 23 of 35 for 240, 250, whatever that was. I think this game, we're going to see that quintessential, 25 of 35 for 315, 2, maybe 3 touchdowns. And look, he is going to throw a pick. We know he's going to throw a pick. He is a gunslinger. After all, I like Indy +7 here. Even with my confidence, I am going to buy half a point just because I feel like I have to buy the hook. I like what Phillip Rivers has done. And a lot of what it is the team around him, you can tell it's not, oh, who is this guy? Or, oh, this is a publicity stunt or whatever. You can tell this is a guy who stepped into that locker room and said, the only reason I'm here is to help y'all win. And he has already picked up the offense. 10 days? He has enough rapport with those players to be able to call out what he needs them to do. I don't know. I think this is the game. I know Phillip is going to win one of these games. I think he's got one more chance after this, assuming Riley Leonard is still out. And I'm also assuming that Phillip Rivers is starting this because, again, we are still recording on Tuesday. A lot up in the air. I can't imagine Riley Leonard gets the start over Phillip Rivers as well as he played last night, but I like Indy +7. I also do like the over. This needs to be a shootout. And even then, I worry because how bad the Indy defense is. But I also do think if you're going to sit here and say this game is a shootout, I don't know. It might be a little perverted, might be a little messed up, but I'm going to ride the 44-year-old Phillip Rivers over Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence has played very, very well this season. More reason why I'm expecting for a little bit of a regression to what we expect from Trevor Lawrence. Could be wrong, but I don't know. I'm feeling in my gut Indy +7 over 47.5. Can't wait to see Phillip sling it one last, or maybe 2 more last time. So with that being said, final game that we will dive into fully. This is your other Saturday game. You're going to have the Baltimore Ravens heading to Green Bay. The Green Bay Packers are 2.5-point favorites in this one. The over-under is 40.5. I do not have the money line for Baltimore, but Green Bay is minus 140. So I would assume probably minus 1 or plus 120, maybe plus 160, however they wanted to flip it there. This is interesting. I don't think we're going to know too much about Lamar Jackson at this stage, but that line makes me believe that Vegas expects Lamar to play, with all due respect to Snoop Huntley. Raider Jim, your thoughts, Baltimore at Green Bay.
Yeah, what a turnaround for the Ravens. And you hate to see it. They're so competitive, they're so good, but real head scratchers here. You almost sense a little bit of not so much frustration. It might be a combination of disappointment and frustration when they show Lamar Jackson on the sidelines, or when they show a lot of the Ravens on the sidelines. The Packers, on the other hand, boy, they're their own worst enemy. You can't, next time there's an onside kick, just, fall on the damn ball, would you? Especially when I've got the money line and the under, please. I'm not asking for much. I think Packers take care of business at Lambeau. The frozen tundra and all that good stuff. It's going to be 2 days after Christmas. They need the victory to try to get themselves a better seeding in the playoffs, get themselves into more mental playoff mode than they might be right now after that loss to the Chicago Bears. Who knows? May not be the last time they're going to have to face those Bears. So we'll see what happens. But I just have a feeling, I'm looking at minus 2.5 for the Packers on what I'm looking at, and I will take minus 2.5 on that one. And then over under 40.5. There was a day I would have said it's going to be a shootout. I don't know if it's going to be a shootout now. I can see it being 24-13 and everybody goes home. So I'm going to go under 40.5 on this one.
Yeah, these are two teams that really struggle to finish. Baltimore mainly.
Yeah.
Baltimore has had, I mean, they've had obviously opening night. I believe it was opening night against Buffalo, up 40-25 with 6 minutes to go, and they lose that game. And then last week as well, it seems, honestly, maybe, I don't know if this is a crazy take, but I think it's time for John Harbaugh and the Baltimore Ravens to maybe you know what? I'm not even going to try it. Mutually part ways. And again, I don't think it's because John Harbaugh is a bad coach. I just think there's oil and water. It's just not working with Lamar. And I don't think both can come back next year. Again, they've been talking about Lamar being available. That's kind of seems like last year was the first offseason we didn't have those rumors about. I like Green Bay in this one. I think they have a lot more to play for. And with that being said, I think the Micah Parsons injury for the Packers, very, very tough to deal with. But I think the biggest injury they've had to deal with this year is the injury to Tucker Kraft. Once he went down, this offense, and don't get me wrong, it wasn't world beaters before, but when he was in on the field, he was at least somewhat of a deep ball threat. I don't know. I do have my concerns with Green Bay overall, especially in the playoffs as they try and keep Detroit out, but not really in this one. Again, I think these are two teams that they're good, but maybe end of game scenarios, not as, locked in as you want them to be. And overall, I just think Green Bay is a more talented team. Way too many question marks for Baltimore. Their defense is so Jekyll and Hyde. They have moments that look like they're, rounding back into form. And then they have other moments where it looks like they can't tackle anything. So you just don't know. So inconsistent. So give me Green Bay minus 2.5, mainly just because it's the home team. And I am going to go over 40.5 here. I don't know. It just seems like a little low, and maybe it's just the old Baltimore Green Bay brain in my head. These guys shoot out, blah blah blah. But I think that number is a little lower than I would like. So give me the over 40.5. And finally, as we wrap up this edition, we got 5 other games we're just going to kind of gloss over. The Arizona Cardinals, they are heading to Cincinnati to face the Bengals. The Bengals are going to be 7-point favorites. Your over-under there is 53.5. Pittsburgh, 4-point favorites as they head to Cleveland. And this over-under of 34.5. Goodness gracious, folks. Yeah, that'll be an interesting one. New Orleans at Tennessee, 2 teams that I think maybe have outperformed what people expected. We all expected these 2 teams to be the worst in the league, and I don't think they're the worst, so that's good. New Orleans, 2.5-point favorites on the road as they head to Tennessee. 39 is your over-under. Sorry about that. Last one of the pod, I promise. Tampa Bay, -5.5. Big one for them to keep their hopes alive. They head to Miami, in-state rivalry. 45.5 is your over-under. Tampa Bay, 5.5 is your spread. And then finally, the New England Patriots, 13.5-point favorites as they head to MetLife to face the Jets. 42.5 is your over-under. Raider Jim, any of those games jump out to you?
Yeah, actually, the Tampa Bay game, because they do have a lot to play for. They want to make it a very interesting Week 18. They've kind of stumbled the last few games, and they need to make up for it. And if you're going to have talk about the injustice of scheduling, Carolina has to go out and they're going to play the Seahawks.
Yeah.
And Tampa Bay is going to go down the street and they're going to play Miami. Yeah. I mean, my goodness, there's just sometimes life just isn't fair. But, good setup for Tampa Bay. They should be able to get back on track. I can see them blowing out Miami by a full touchdown, no problem. The Cleveland-Pittsburgh game, the over-under aside, when you look at how well Cleveland performed against Buffalo, why can't they perform like that against Pittsburgh? And they're going to be at home. So I'm not going to be surprised if Cleveland doesn't pull the upset of upsets. And then my other upset would be, and it's going to be in my best bets as well, Tennessee's going back-to-back with victories.
Oh, I like it.
Indeed.
Yeah, my thoughts now. First and foremost, obviously, Coach, not on the pod these days, but I kind of tongue in cheek been like, oh, it's going to be a tough year for him, and it has. It's not been great, at least for the Saints side of things. He's had a great year himself, but I don't know. I think there's something there with that Tyler Shuck kid. I think he's got something there, and I think there's something to work with. I really do like that game. That will also be in my best bets, but I am gonna I'll get to that momentarily. Then the other side of it, obviously, I do want to talk about, DK. Obviously, he will be suspended for this game and the following game. And obviously, I'm sure you've seen it, but DK, I don't think he made contact, but I don't think that was because he didn't try to, but he essentially took a swing at a Lions fan, or at least a fan in blue hair. So again, I don't know. All because, and this was on video, there might be more to the story, but DK had said there was a racial slur used and a certain C word towards his mother. The video doesn't seem to back that up. Again, it may have been earlier in the game. I don't know. Anyways, all we do know is DK did go grab him by the hair, or at least the wig, I assume, and punched him. And he now has 2-week vacation, unpaid vacation, about $500,000. And he also gave up over $40 million in guaranteed money going forward. So not ideal there. And I don't know. That's a tough one. And finally, the last one here, you kind of mentioned it, Tampa Bay heading to Miami. I just when you thought maybe there was something there with Miami, they've kind of come out and, let's say, pooped the bed the last few weeks, right? As you looked around and you were like, oh, hey, there might be something there. No, there was nothing there. It was fool's gold. But that's an interesting one because they have every opportunity to ruin the Buccaneers season right there. Are they good enough to do it? Will it be Quinn Ewers, who wasn't terrible, but I also don't think he was great? Will it be Zach Wilson? Who knows? Will Mike McDaniel put the pads on and see what he can do? Who knows? That's the fun of the Dolphins these days. And I joke, there are different F words to describe the Dolphins. But it's going to be an interesting weekend. Obviously, Sunday won't be as jam-packed when you have 5 games before that, essentially 3 on Thursday, 2 on Saturday. But it is that time of year where we are going to be getting, not a full Saturday, or a full Sunday slate. Raider Jim, I think you've already given us one, but do you have any more best bets for us?
Oh, I've got a few in here. I think Cincinnati, they're just trying to go out feeling as good about themselves as they can and let people know, hey, injuries aside, we'd have been in there, but we had injuries and not a real good defense. But Cincinnati -6.5 against Arizona. I think I like that bet. I like Tampa Bay covering the 5.5. Tennessee +3 at home. Again, back-to-back for Tennessee. Watch that. I do like the Niners -2.5, and I like the Bills -2.5.
Yeah, I have 5 here. I have a couple maybe upsets, if you want to call them that. I like Houston on the money line. I think they get the job done. As I go through it, let me just get that. Yeah, -105, pretty much a pick 'em against the Chargers. I think they get the job done. You heard how, I expect that game to go. I do like the under in the Rams and Falcons game. Actually, no, I think I have that backwards. I think I had that as over. Let me just make sure. Yeah, I'm sorry. Give me the over in that one. Because I remember I was talking about how much I love watching Bijan and Cooper Kupp, and Puka Nacua. Anyway, so the over 49 in the Atlanta-Los Angeles Rams game. Just like you, I'm going to buy 0.5 point. I like Cincinnati -6.5. Arizona is really bad. They're so bad. I think there are a lot of people that have just completely forgot about them, that they exist. They do. And even though I think Jonathan Gannon would wish that you didn't acknowledge their presence, because I think he's going to be fired, but Cincinnati -6.5. I also like the over 39 in the New Orleans Tennessee game. I wanted to get my hands dirty in that game so much, but I didn't want to go against Tyler Shuck. I don't like, the Saints as road favorites. So I just figure, you know what? Let's see some points being scored. Let Shuck and Ward toss it all over the field. Give me the over 39. And I like Cleveland on the money line. I think Cleveland beats Pittsburgh. I think they end Pittsburgh season, or I'm sorry, it wouldn't end Pittsburgh season, but at the very least make it a little more dramatic heading into the last week of the season. And I also do think Myles Garrett breaks the NFL sack record on Aaron Rodgers. And I want him to do it this week because if he does it next week, they'll always have, oh, well, he did it in 17 games versus 16. Yeah. So I'm a huge fan of Myles Garrett, even though I have no sympathy for him anymore. Look, you signed that mega contract to stay with the Browns. You knew what you signed up for. Financially, it was the right decision. Professionally, Anyways, Cleveland money line, my final best bet. Raider Jim, your final thoughts as we head into Christmas.
Oh, final thoughts, and here it is. I guess we're going to do possibly one more before the end of the year, but as we go into, 2 days away, it's going to be Christmas Eve tomorrow. So first and foremost, I hope all my Hebrew friends had a wonderful Hanukkah season, and I hope nothing but prosperity, peace, happiness, and good health to them. And to all those who are going to be celebrating Christmas, I will say, look around the table. Appreciate who was there. Remember those who may not be with you for the first time at Christmas, and keep everybody near and dear to your heart. And to you, my friend, God bless you and Merry Christmas, Brandon.
Right back to you, sir. Yeah, it's kind of interesting just because, Christmas and December, it's the season of cheer and joy and season's greetings. And, it's not always the case for everyone. And for a lot of families, obviously, as Raider Jim kind of alluded to, you lose people throughout. But there are also a lot of families that, their loved ones are stationed abroad, or their loved ones are going to be working the night shift, or, at the hospital, or, being a cop or whatever, because those, the civil services do not take holidays. They are, hopefully, God willing, they get holiday pay, but the police will still be out there having to do their job. The firefighters will still be having to do their job. And then even on not, measuring this, but then of course we have our wonderful, brave men and women throughout the world that are protecting us. And we have our civil servants that are able to go home at the end of the day. Our men and women, our armed forces, they're going to be coming home later. Obviously they're not going to be able to enjoy the holidays with their family, and always keep them in mind, because again, it's not easy for everyone around this time of year. And a lot of that is because of who isn't here. So keep them in mind, keep all of them in mind as, we go forward, and continue to practice empathy and try and give people the benefit of the doubt. And again, from myself and Raider Jim and everyone here at the First Off the Bench podcast, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, be safe, enjoy yourself, and enjoy the family, enjoy the people around the table, because as Raider Jim mentioned, there will be a time where you're going to be missing that person, and you're going to wish you were maybe a little more aware of it. So just a little reminder. But again, Merry Christmas, everyone. Happy
Merry
holidays.
Christmas.
Be safe. We'll talk to you next week. Take care.